Hey everybody, it's Safi and Marco Dish Out on Movies, the only movie review show on YouTube to review movies in terms of food. And it's just Marco here once again. I am here today to review Better Call Saul Season 1. This week, it's just going to be full of TV. I kind of wanted to review the documentary What is a Woman? But I don't know, I'm just not in the mood for any, documentary, there's this weird insect. It's like a cross between, a little stick and a fly. It's really creepy. Let's just kill it because yeah. Sorry, insect. Oh, there's blood all over the piece of paper. I think it was a mosquito, a big mosquito. Anyways, I'm not in the mood to I'm not in the mood to watch any documentary really, because that's part of the problem nowadays, is that real life is forced on us all the time when it comes to entertainment. Like, you have actors on Twitter, actors on Instagram. What do they do all day? Do they talk about movies? No, of course not. They talk about their personal politics. They go on shows and talk about their politics. Political stuff is forced on us all the time. And to be honest, I'm just sick of it. I'm just absolutely sick of it. I literally don't care unless it personally affects me. And that's really how everyone should be. That's really why we've gotten the way we've gotten, is because everyone thinks they have to be involved in everything. And in terms of everything that's going on, I really don't have any investment or I don't really care at all. It's just so irrelevant to my daily life that I just don't care. And I don't want to sit around all day watching documentaries about what is going on in the world. And it's just common sense, with that What is a Woman documentary. I don't even need to see it. It's just common sense that these people are mentally ill, and men shouldn't be competing in women's sports. That's just common sense. So I really don't need to watch a documentary to tell me that. Yeah, I already know that. So I just decided, what the hell? I'm just going to review Better Call Saul Season 1. Because at the end of the series, I'm going to rank all the episodes, and I'm going to rank all the seasons. And I wanted to refresh myself about the seasons and the episodes, because everything's gotten so muddy for me. I'm just so negative towards Better Call Saul because it sucks now. The first 3 seasons were really good. I looked forward to watching them every time they came out. They were like an event for me, and they were really special periods of time. But these newer seasons, seasons 4, 5, and 6, they're frustratingly bad, and they're irritating, because you sit there and you know that these people can do a lot better and have done a lot better. And let's just go all the way back to season 1, where it all started. Now, this show, it was originally supposed to be a joke show. And that's something not a lot of people talk about, is, you have all these people and they say everything is about their vision and their special, unique vision that no other writer or director has. But the thing is that Better Call Saul was originally supposed to be 2 seasons of 6 episodes of straight up comedy. It was going to be a sitcom comedy show where it was just Saul and he's solving these cases, and it's really over the top, it's really goofy, and just ha 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 ha, this is just a joke show. And there was really nothing that was going to happen of interest for the most part. It was just a fun fan servicey thing of let's give them some Saul, since everyone really loved the character of Saul. And that is a key thing. Everyone loved his character. Like, no matter what they say about, he was just a comedic background, like a comedic side character. He was just there for comedy. Bullshit. He was there to help these characters in some really tough situations. And he was smart as hell. He was a strong character. He was cool. He was reliable. He was pretty loyal. And, he was even at the very end, when he leaves and he said, Walter, this is the end. It's the end now. Like, you have to realize it's all over. And it's like he had more common sense than the main character, who thought, like, Saul Goodman is going to help him, like, massacre this group of neo-Nazi pirates. It was just ridiculous for him to rope Saul into doing that. And so he is an incredible character. In fact, he was my second favorite character of Breaking Bad. His character was just so funny and so cool. The comedy was just icing on the cake. Especially the laser tag and, all the stuff from the show. And he was just so hilarious and so good. And when I heard he was going to have his own show, I was very excited. But then, especially because they have this formula. It's basically a formula. It's a shitty formula. It's a flawed formula where we can only have this small amount of episodes and this small amount of seasons because we don't want to overstay our welcome, which is just the most stupidest thing I've ever heard a creative person say. Like, if I'm doing artwork right now, I'm selling artwork, and to just think, like, I can only do 5 pictures because I don't want to wear out my creativity. Like, that's just fucking retarded. Like, what kind of an artist would do that? Or just imagine you're a plumber and you only want to do 5 plumbing jobs a year because you don't want to wear yourself out. You don't want to try to do too much. That's just stupid. That is just stupid. That is a backward, asinine way of thinking. I get what they're trying to say is that they want to have things be ended on their own terms where everything can be wrapped up perfectly. They don't have to have any filler, any sort of, I get what they're saying. And in some cases, that kind of formula does work. With Breaking Bad, even though I did think it ended a little early, since he killed Gus, and then right after that, like, oh, now it's the final season. Like, oh, that went downhill really fast. Like that just like went like from top to like woo. Even though it ended really, 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 really prematurely, it still worked, and it felt like, okay, it works for Breaking Bad. And not every show should do this, should have this model where we can only have this strict amount of seasons and episodes. But for Breaking Bad, it worked. And in fact, but the thing is that it's a flawed model from the beginning. Because the first season is mediocre. And the creator of the show even acknowledges that. And there's tons of filler all over the series. I mean, there's just mindless scenes in season 4 of Jesse dealing with Gale's death, having parties, just doing all this crap. And it's needless. It's quote-unquote needless filler. So, it's just bullshit. It's just bullshit that you can make this perfect show with no filler, and it's a fraud. It's a complete fraud and a complete lie and a complete delusion. If you have a show, you want to have as many chances as possible for that show to have good episodes. You don't want to say like, only this amount, because then what if 5 out of 10 episodes suck? That's pretty bad, isn't it? That's an F. That's 50%. So, just imagine if it was 24. and you had 15 great episodes, 5 good episodes, and only 4 bad ones. That would be 20 out of 24 good episodes. That's a lot better of a ratio than 5 out of 10. And with the first season of Better Call Saul, it started off immediately on the wrong foot because they released the first 3 episodes in one day. And that was the first big mistake that the show did, because you could tell that they were trying too hard to rope in all the Breaking Bad fandom. And that's the other funny thing too, is that they knew that it's smart to take advantage of this huge boom in fandom where everyone likes that show. Everyone likes Breaking Bad. Let's take advantage and have this new show and rope all those people in so that we can make even more money. Even though we said, we don't want to wear ourselves out by doing too much, but you jump from one show to another, and it's in the same universe. So right off the bat, they released the first 3 episodes, which the first 3, well, actually the first 4, the first 5, sorry. The first 5 are kind of setting things up, and they're not really that great compared to the next 5 episodes, but the thing is that they're all necessary. They can all stand on their own if you have a patient and dedicated fan base. I mean, these same fans in season 6 who say, why do you guys complain about the episodes being boring? Those are the same people who constantly remind you that the first 3 seasons are boring. It only got good in season 4. And, season 1, it was so boring. Those people were the first ones to complain about those beginning episodes in season 1. And so you start off, you have this first episode. It was a classic pilot episode. In fact, I've seen that pilot episode I think about 15 times, because it's such a fantastic example of how to start a show. Every character is set up, every plot line is set up. It's a perfect, and you get all the motivations of Jimmy, and he is a great character because you can see he's a completely different person than he was in Breaking Bad. How does he get to Breaking Bad? What's he like during Breaking Bad? We'll talk about that in season 2, because that's going to be where the flames come out in terms of the series overall, not season 2, because season 2 is fire and season 2 is awesome. But that first episode, it's perfect. Everything is perfectly laid out. You have this case he's working on, multiple potential cases maybe, and he's starting off at rock bottom, and you really get where he's coming from, and he is such a sympathetic character, even more so than Walter White, because Walter White starts off, and he's kind of like a jackass chemistry teacher. He's worn out, he's completely sick of teaching. He's sick of all these kids who don't listen to him, don't pay attention. He has a terrible home life. He's just sick of life. Contrast that with Jimmy, who is a bright, young individual who he yearns for a better future for himself. And it's almost like stuff has happened in the past that's really bad, and he wants the future to overcome what happened in the past and make him a successful person. And he wants the American dream. And there's just something so cool about that you have that character, this young, vibrant character, in contrast with Walter in Breaking Bad, who was the exact opposite, where he's old and he's sick of it. He's just sick of everything. Kevin Spacey in American Beauty type of person. And then we start off, and instead of having a Jesse Pinkman type of character, where a lot of Breaking Bad is revolved around this 2-person dynamic, this duo, Walter and Jesse, which is Jesse, he's kind of like a substitute for his son, since him and his son, their relationship gets complicated over the years. In contrast to that, Jimmy, he's really all alone. Like, he has Kim, but Kim is kind of distant for the most part because she doesn't approve of some of the stuff he does because she sees that he's kind of dangerous in the sense that he does a lot of obscure, wild things, and they're pretty bad things in terms of being a lawyer and being, all official and stuff like that. And then he has his brother. That's it. That's really it. And Kim, she stands up for him over the course of the season, and she ends up becoming a lot more of a brave character in terms of she stands up a lot more for him in season 2. And their relationship gets a lot better in season 2, but for now, she's just this character who, she likes him and she wants him to improve and everything, and she's seen his journey as well. She's probably his best character in terms of, like, she's the one who likes him the most. And then you have Chuck, his brother. And Chuck's relationship with Jimmy is probably one of the greatest things about the show. And a lot of the people who don't like the first 3 seasons, they don't like Jimmy and Chuck, which is at the core of the show. And so, you have all these people who say, I'm the biggest Better Call Saul fan, but they're not fans of what's at the core of the show, which is that you have this older brother who's jealous of his younger brother, a very identifiable story in this dynamic, and he's jealous of him, and he's had to bail him out all the time from problems, and he knows what his younger brother is capable of. But the thing is that even though he wants his brother to improve, he's never going to let his brother live down his past mistakes, and he's never going to trust him because he says people don't change, which, Chuck doesn't change either. So, how could Chuck say, I'm going to get better, but, he says people don't change? Like, he's just, oh, God, I hate Chuck. Chuck is the worst human being. I would legitimately say that Chuck is worse than Tuco. Chuck is worse than some of the worst people in Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul history, because he's so evil. The fact that he has his younger brother, and his younger brother takes care of him. It's this very it's a nice story where he wants to please his older brother. He wants to work with him. He wants to gain his approval. And by the end of the season, it all blows up in his face because he realizes his brother is the evil one. And that he was never really that bad. It was his brother who was bad. And no matter what he's going to do, his brother's always going to hate him, which is just really heartbreaking. And, to give you an example of what that feels like, it feels like getting stabbed in the chest and gutted in the chest with a machete. And that's what the feeling we get near the end of this season with this masterful acting between Jimmy and Chuck. Masterful acting. And so the first couple of episodes, they tried to do this mainstreamy, not mainstream, but like Breaking Bad inflammatory thing where, he goes to Tuco's house, that was one of the greatest moments of Better Call Saul history, was when he thought he's going to the Kettleman's house, and then he knocks on the door and Tuco has the gun to him. That was so amazing. It was such a oh shit moment. It was so unexpected, and it made sense though. It made sense. unlike season 6 Howard. Not going to say anything more about that right now. Well, I already did in my season 6.1 review. But it makes sense, and it is such a classic type of mistake where it's like it's a logical error, like, oh, that's the same car. Oops, wrong house, wrong people. That's a really like great twist. And then in the second episode, it's this very Breaking Bad-esque episode where it's just them in the desert, and Jimmy is badass in season 1. He is badass because he is able to bargain away the deaths of 3 people, including him. He bargains all the way down to where the twins just get a broken leg each. And the fact that he was able to do that just shows how talented he really is. And so that is something to think about, because in the later seasons he doesn't really do anything that amazing. And so the fact that he starts off this legendary, like, who at the beginning of this show, all I could think of is, where is he gonna go from here? Like, if he's this badass, like, where is he gonna go from here? And so that was awesome. And we're also introduced to Nacho Libre, not Nacho Libre, Nacho. And he starts off as like another sinister villain, because he's most notable for playing a villain in Far Cry 3, the video game. And I was so excited that he's going to be a villain in Better Call Saul. I was so excited, because he is so good at playing a villain. He's okay at playing a hero, but honestly, he's so good at being a villainous character, somebody who you would not want to mess with. And so we're introduced to him. Then in episode 3, things kind of slow down. What was episode 3? I can't even... Oh yeah, that was Nacho. Then we have this whole deal where Jimmy actually has to get Nacho out of this precarious case where he's framed with kidnapping the Kettlemans. And you'd think, like, yeah, he probably did that. Oh no, of course not. The Kettlemans decided to run away, and they're just camping in the middle of the woods. And yet again, you have this thing with Mike, where Mike starts to have this relationship with Jimmy. Mike's relationship with Jimmy is what I would say better than Jimmy's relationship with Kim, because they have such a cool dynamic where they both know about each other's true identities. There's no secrets, really. And they just, you do a favor for me, I do a favor for you. That's such a cool relationship. They work so well together. It's like this, it's also reminiscent of Walter and Jesse, except for Mike isn't a manipulative piece of shit like Walter is. So it's such a positive relationship, to put it, to just, yeah, I know it's, they're doing bad things a lot of the time, but it is a very positive relationship. Like, a lot of friendships nowadays, they could look at this show to model their friendship after this, because, like, I gotta be honest, like, it is hard to find friends nowadays, especially because everybody is just out for themselves. And there's been times where, I've advertised things on Instagram, I've advertised things on Facebook, and I'll hardly get, like, any support from my supposed friends that are there, and, like, they see all the stuff that I post, and it's like, why are you even friends with me? Like, I support everything that my friends do, and then in return, I don't really get anything back. And with Mike and Jimmy, it's this great relationship where, like, you help me, and then I'll help you. And we'll just go back and forth and back and forth. And I don't know, I just really like that a lot. And but you have yet again Jimmy. Jimmy goes and traces the Kettleman's footsteps all the way to their campsite. I mean, he's so fucking badass. It is unbelievable. Unbelievable. He hikes for miles and miles and miles and finds the Kettlemans. And that leads to one of the most heartbreaking moments of the season 1. And that's another thing, is that Jimmy, we really see why he becomes Saul Goodman. Like, a lot of people, they judge Saul Goodman and they say he's just this selfish, audacious Saul and he's a prick and blah, 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 blah. Well, why? Well, because of things like what happened to him in this first season. That's why. And those kinds of things, they really do wear on you as a person. And the moment where the Kettlemans, where Betsy, she says, you're the type of lawyer guilty people hire. And that was just so, like, sad and just like, ugh. Like, what a horrible thing to say, because, like, he's trying to become a real lawyer. He's trying to become, like, a professional goody-goody lawyer, and, with a little bit of flair of, like, creativity, spontaneity, a little too wild and eccentric. And then you have people like her who tell him the truth of, like, this is why he's not getting clients. It's because people don't want to be associated with him. They don't want to hire a lawyer that guilty people would hire. And so that's just so sad. And then episode 4 takes a little bit of a dip, honestly, because it's a very simplistic episode. And that's another thing, you talk about, this modern TV model of, like, just, we can only have this amount of episodes and then everything will be perfect. Well, in episode 4, it slows down to, like, a snail's pace, where the whole episode is focused on Jimmy pulling off a con. And you'd think that and I have a lot more to say about the show too. Like, this is just me going very, very fast. I could say a lot more. I just remembered something in episode 3 where we see that flashback of Chuck bailing out Jimmy. And to me, we see that, and then in the episode, Jimmy having to bail out and get Nacho out of prison. It's almost like the situation has been reversed, and Jimmy can kind of see what Chuck saw in his brother at that point. But anyway, that was just a little side note. But in episode 4, he copies Howard's billboard and look and color, and he just, you think, oh, he's doing a typical Saul thing. No, he's not. He's doing something completely different, because he has this fake guy pretend to, dangle off of the billboard, and he's going to fall, and Jimmy goes to save him after he has this convenient news video shooting there. And that gets him a shit ton of new clients. And that was a good idea, but honestly, that could have just been like a 20-minute part of an episode. Like, episodes 4 and 5 could have probably been one episode if they really, really tried. So I just gotta call bullshit on the whole, like, we don't have any filler, we don't have any downtime, it's all killer, no filler. BS, okay? And then we get to episode 5. Sorry, I'm sitting in a car, and you know how hot it is, and how can't waste any gas having the air conditioning on, which really sucks. But in episode 5, we see all these clients that are like Saul Goodman-esque clients. You have this guy, he wants to secede from the United States, and You have Tony, the talking toilet buddy, and these are some hilarious things. And it's an okay episode. I would say Alpine Shepherd Boy is the worst episode of season 1, because it just kind of feels like, it's the bridge between the first half and the second half. Because then we get probably one of the greatest TV episodes of all time in 5-0. And I used to not like this episode. I used to think this was boring. But I love it. I think it's a complete masterpiece. And here we have something else where, they didn't choose to have Mike's story overshadow Jimmy's, and in the other episodes, like in the later seasons where Kim's stories overshadowed Jimmy. They just gave Mike a whole episode and said, we'll have this one episode, get all the ideas out of our system, and then we'll sprinkle Mike in throughout the rest. Because it's such a better way of doing things than to take away focus from your main character. And that's another thing about this season, why it's so good, is because it's about Jimmy. He's the main character. And that's how it should be. We shouldn't have this thing where, it seems like, oh, Jimmy only had like one thing to do this episode. Jimmy only had like one thing to do there. Oh, Jimmy wasn't even in that episode. That's what happens in the later seasons. And it's trash. It's straight up trash. But you have this episode, Mike killing the corrupt cops who helped kill his son. And we have this really brutal reveal where Mike was the dirty one all along. And everyone was dirty, but his son wasn't. And he gives this really, really incredible monologue. And it's so good. It is such a good episode. I love it. Like, every time I watch it now, I'm like, yeah, that is a good episode. But guess what? All the people who supposedly love the show, they don't even mention this episode anymore. All they do is talk about Bagman, or they talk about Bad Choice Road, where it's all about how Kim is quitting the law firm, and it's a bad choice road. And after that is the start of a new storyline where Jimmy, yet again, in 5-0, Jimmy comes to Mike's rescue and pulls off a classic little caper type of thing, a little stunt where he helps Mike steal the policeman's notebook, the detective's notepad. That was epic. Once again, Jimmy just does these badass things every episode. And it seems like he's fully capable of like just running circles over the version that he's at right now in Better Call Saul. And so that's kind of embarrassing that this character, he's capable of doing more in the first season of a 6-season show. I mean, isn't that kind of embarrassing? I mean, just think about Monk. Just think about, what if Monk was solving the cases he was solving in season 6 and season 1? And then what if he was solving the cases from season 1 and season 6? Just think about how embarrassing that would have been. I mean, that would have been so fucking bad. But that's what they did in this Better Call Saul season 6. In fact, he's not even doing any cases. He's doing them off camera because, they want to rush through it and not show anything worthwhile with the main character. So he finds out that Sandpiper is stealing money from the people staying there. And that was where the elder law storyline was going. Which is good, because at first I was kind of like scratching my head about this whole elder law idea of like, I'm going to dress up like Matlock, and then I'm going to go around, handing them these Jell-O cups with my face inside it, like really kind of queer storyline. And we also have the storyline with Howard, where Howard is the supposed villain. And one of the greatest things of the season is that we end up finding out that Chuck is the bad guy, and Howard always liked Jimmy. And probably my favorite sequence of the whole season is when we see Jimmy and he's in the mail room and he's delivering mail, and he finally gets the letter back, his test results from the bar exam, and he passed. And his brother is like visibly upset about it, as if like oh no, he's achieved something, oh no. And we see him having this party where he's celebrating, and it's this amazing no dialogue sequence where Howard goes into the party and he tells Jimmy, "You're not going to be a lawyer at this firm because, me and the partners, we've decided no." And it's a horribly deflating sequence, but it's so brilliant that, they do all that. We don't have to hear the exact dialogue. And it just shows, once again, like he's always going to be remembered for his mistakes. Always. He's not given any more chances. He's not given any more chances to like redeem himself and to grow as a person. It's like cancel culture nowadays. We're like, oh, we can't ever watch a movie with that person again because they did something in the 1970s. Like, oh no. Did you see that fucking article about Terry Gilliam, that one biatch was talking about? I felt unsafe as a child on the set of his film, and it feels like white men in film. They can just do whatever they want in the name of art. We shouldn't support any white men in film anymore. That's the type of thing that Jimmy is dealing with in season 1, is this culture of people who won't, it's like he can't win. It's like no matter what good he tries to do, he can't win. And that is what cancel culture is, and that's why it's bad, is because it encourages it. I mean, it is the worst thing in the universe because, we talk about evolution. Well, nobody's going to ever evolve if we're not allowed to evolve as people and make mistakes and overcome them and do better next time. What a terrible world to live in when you have all these disgusting people like Chuck who say, like, no, Jimmy cannot be a lawyer because, he can never be anything more than Slipping Jimmy. So he comes up with the Sandpiper case, and then he starts to work with Chuck, and it's this really fun thing where Chuck is helping him, and it's a really cool dynamic momentarily until we get the reveal. And Pimento is probably another favorite episode of the series, because in that one you get this really good story with Mike. And Mike has to take care of Stacy and Kaylee. He's got to just do all this shit to get the money. And he starts off this bodyguarding job. And you have that incredible scene where he takes the guns from Trevor from Grand Theft Auto 5. And then that like 600-pound, 7 foot tall guy, he just runs away from Mike. I mean, that was so cool and so creative and simplistic. And then it's this thing with Nacho where you have this guy who works in pharmaceuticals and he's selling all these pills to Nacho. And that whole sequence, that's going to lead to even better things in season 2. So we get the start of that. And then we get the reveal where finally we find out that Chuck has been working against Jimmy the whole time. And we have this amazing scene where Chuck says the law is sacred, you're like a chimp with a machine gun, and it's like a horrible, gut-wrenching sequence. And that's another reason why season 1 is great, is because a lot of it just revolves around you have those two characters interacting together in the house, and just their interactions, and you have two very different people coming from very different styles of how they practice law, and the dynamic between them is surprisingly interesting. And finally, we end the season with the best episode of the season, because it's named after me. It's named after everyone named Marco. And so we get introduced to this other con man character in Jimmy's past, when he was slipping Jimmy. And Jimmy had to leave Marco behind to go become a lawyer in New Mexico. And so we get to find out that story. And it's a very important story because that was a crossroads. And Marco is like slipping Jimmy if he had stayed in Chicago. And so it's like Jimmy, he grows to see throughout the episode that because he's come to New Mexico, he's in a shitty position where his brother's sabotaging him, and everything is going to be difficult from there, and there's no winning with him. And like, why did he ever even leave? Why did he ever even straighten up if his brother wasn't going to accept him after that? And then you have Marco, who stayed in Chicago, and he's just working this stupid job where he like puts in these water things. I can't remember what he called them. Things for firefighters. And he's having a miserable, boring, dead end life. He's a drifter, and he's having a terrible life. So we can see that Jimmy, he had two choices, and both of those choices were going to always lead to trash. And so he goes back to Marco and he says, maybe I can go back to this former life. And it's just so good watching the two of them con people throughout the episode, and their dynamic. I would say they have a better dynamic than Jimmy and Chuck and Jimmy and Kim. So you can really see why they were friends. And then, of course, we get the whole thing with Kevin Costner, where he pretends like he's Kevin Costner, and that was really funny. And, stuff like that, little things like that, I don't mind that. That's so much better than earlier on in the season where, let's have a whole episode out in the desert with Tuco, like it's Breaking Bad. That little moment of fan service is a lot better than that. So, but then we get them pulling one last con, and it involves a watch, a fake Rolex, and of course Marco, he's very overweight, and I'm pretty overweight, but I'm losing weight. I've already lost 6 pounds again. And Marco dies, and he has a heart attack, and it is a horribly sad moment and a sad scene. And oh yeah, I never even talked about the bingo scene, which was another incredible scene where it all revolves around Jimmy's acting, and all the people in the home, it's just them watching Jimmy go insane. And the fact that, we don't get anything like that in season 6. It's just all about Jimmy and Kim, having sex because they're happy that they just did something bad. Like that's season 6. But season 1, you have this sequence where Jimmy goes insane, and he talks about what happened to make Jimmy this unforgivable character, where he was really mad at someone, and he pulled off a really gross prank, and it accidentally involved the guy's children, and they saw it, and so he got labeled something, and so that really, that would harm your reputation. But when Marco dies, that's such a horrifyingly sad moment, because we see that could have been Jimmy. Jimmy could have died, and he could have ended up like that, just this nobody, because Marco, he was just pretending to be this nobody, this drunk in an alley, and that's how he dies. Like, just, oh, how horrible and dark. And then we see that Jimmy is affected by this, and he decides, you know what? And the thing with the Kettlemans, where he was so badass that he devised this scheme where him and Mike stole back the money, and they said, if you're not going to give it back, oh, wait, no, we already turned it in. So suck on that, Kettlemans. You're going to prison for, the shortest amount of time possible. And it really is the best plan. And Jimmy really uplifted Kim in doing that. And so, he's uplifting Kim and she's uplifting him. So they have a good relationship, as opposed in the later seasons where it seems like he's just having to uplift her all the time, and that, she's stronger than him in the later seasons. But he says, like, you know what? I had all those millions. I had like $1 million, $2 million in cash. And why did I give it back? Like, it would have been so easy to just take half of it and split it up between us. And it was such a great question. It's a great question for the audience of, like, why should he have turned that money in? Those people were pieces of shit. They were evil. They had no morality at all. Their kids, they're going to grow up screwed up regardless because their parents are pretty retarded. And so, like, why didn't we just screw them over? Like, and Mike also gives a great speech about, I've met good criminals, I've met bad priests, I've met bad cops. Being a criminal is being a criminal. And what matters is, are you going to be a good criminal or a bad one? And that was a great speech. That was in season 1. I mean, these are iconic things that we don't get in season 6, season 5, season 4. And so it all ends with Jimmy turning down this, well, we don't know yet, but he might be taking a position at Davis and Maine, which also happens because Howard and Kim decide to help Jimmy, because they're two characters who both like him. But he just decides, you know what, F it. I'm just going to drive off and I'm going to do my own thing, and I'm going to be a lawyer who doesn't care, because, why should I? I've cared all the way up to this point just to please my brother, and I'm not going to anymore. I'm going to bend the law to what I want to do with it. It is a fantastic ending to the season. I will say, though, that in the final 10 minutes of the episode, it did kind of dip down a little bit. It kind of like, you know what I mean? Like, it got kind of quiet and slow at the end. But still, it was a great ending because it feels like the classic story structure where you have the climax, and then is it the falling action, and then resolution. And you could feel a sense of resolution at the end of season 1. So I would give season 1, it's very simple, and a lot of it relies on Jimmy. And you feel like this is going to be a great series based around his character. A character-based series, not a what it becomes in seasons 4, 5, and 6, but based on Jimmy's character. Yeah. What would I give season 1? I would say it has to be a filet mignon. I'm not really a huge fan of filet mignon. I kind of prefer ribeye steaks, just a typical ribeye steak, with salt and pepper. But a filet mignon, that's something that stands all on its own. And you don't even really need that much in terms of sides, in terms of seasoning, because it's just such a strong meat that it's able to stand all by itself. But you have some mashed potato on the side. That's Kim. That's Howard. That's Chuck. And then you have some broccoli. That's Nacho. I don't know why Nacho is broccoli, but I just kind of feel like saying Nacho is broccoli. Like, yeah, I'm not going to give nachos because he's Nacho. That's not going to be how this works. So, yeah, season 1, starting off a new series, Better Call Saul, with a filet mignon dinner. Wow, I can't wait to see where that goes. Wink, wink. But anyways, please like this video, comment, tell me what you thought of season 1, because there's a lot of people, and for some reason there's camps where people either like the first couple of seasons or they like the next couple of seasons. And it really shows that they're two entirely different shows. And that, I think, is something that the writers, they should have seen in season 4 and fixed it. So anyways, also please subscribe to my channel, our channel. Safi's on here sometimes. If you'd like to see more Better Call Saul reviews. Goodbye, everybody. See you soon.